Hi, everyone. My name's Melanie, and welcome back to another episode of the Prolife Global Podcast. Today, I am with Mohammed from Iran, and Mohammed is with the Rescuing Dreams International organization. And we're going to be talking today about life in a post-Roe world. And starting this series, we're going to be getting perspectives from pro-life activists and leaders all around the world. Today, we're starting with the Middle East. So, Mohammed, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, how did you get involved in the pro-life movement?
Hi, Melanie. Thank you for having me. So, my name is Mohammed Hassan Sadehzadeh, and I work for the Rescuing Dreams International Pro-Life campaign in Iran. And I'm also part of the AVASH media documentary team, which we focus on issues of sexuality, family issues, and abortion. This is the main thing we do. Our organization, the Pro-Life organization, Rescuing Dreams, began earlier this year. It is one of the, and we actually had a lot of success, and we managed to gain a lot of attention. And we also released a pro-life documentary this year, and in fact, it was a history of Roe v. Wade and the issue of abortion in the United States. Going on to what you wanted to ask about, how is the issue of pro-life and abortion in the post-Roe v. Wade era affected Iran?
Yeah, but first, can you tell us a little bit about what does abortion look like in Iran? I don't know. I'm sure our listeners don't know. Can you kind of paint the picture a little bit of what does the pro-life versus pro-abortion culture look like there?
Well, first of all, Iran, as you might know, is an Islamic country, and according to the laws of Iran, abortion is an offense. It's illegal, except for cases of when the mother's life is in danger, or when there are birth defects and birth anomalies. So this is the law, but the reality is that there are many abortions, technically illegal abortions, taking place in Iran. And most of them are done by professionals and actually in clinics. So it's technically illegal, but it's relatively common, and it's the law is not really being enforced to the required degree. And it has become a very serious issue. We have hundreds of thousands of abortions, unfortunately, each year in Iran.
Wow.
And as I said, most of them are taking place in clinics by professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why one of the reasons why we actually started thinking about this issue of abortion in Iran. Because for too long, it has been an issue which hasn't really been spoken about, and there's a lot of ambiguity we felt that people had. A lot of people didn't know that it was a crime. A lot of people didn't know that it was religiously a sin. That's something that
because it's so common.
Even religious people didn't know that.
Wow.
And again, and a lot of people didn't know what are the realities of abortion, how horrifying and how painful it is. And that's why we decided to make a documentary about abortion with a focus of history of abortion in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So we made that documentary. The name is Bleeding, our documentary. And when we finished that, we decided to actually expand on it and not just be restricted to a documentary, and use this documentary as a springboard for a larger movement against abortion. And that's how Rescuing Dreams International began. In March this year, we released our documentary, and we held a combined film release and the commencement of the campaign in Tehran's Milad Tower, which is the tallest building in Iran.
Wow.
And it was a massive event. Hundreds of people came, and we managed to release 1,000 balloons, 1,000 balloons with little lights attached to them in the night into the Tehran sky. And it actually became a huge event in Iran and made a lot of noise. And from that point on, yeah, we started to expand on this campaign. And up until now, I think we were quite successful in reaching out to a lot of people. So the next part of your question is, what is the issue of pro-life versus pro-abortion in Iran? So a lot of people, again, as we said, a lot of people don't know how wrong abortion is, and I believe a lot of it has to do with ignorance, and a lot of it also has to do with people's attitudes towards children and babies and family. In Iran, just like in many other parts of the developing world, in the past couple of decades, we had a huge, both foreign sponsored, like from many international organizations like the UN, and from unfortunately, even our own government, pushing this narrative that having children is a negative, and less children means a better life. That was actually the slogan: less children equals better life.
That's horrible.
And that created an attitude among many people that children are a burden. Children are something excessive. Children are not part of the a human's life, or like having many children is a very bad thing to have. You should try to restrict the number of children you have, and that's why when we did our research, most of the abortions happened. A lot of people think that most of abortions in Iran happen because of premarital relationships. Actually, most of the abortions are happening from married couples, and the reasonings are things like, again, family planning. People don't want to have more than a number of children. Want to have a age difference, certain age difference, or want to have a certain gender for their children, and of course a lot of people cite economic and financial difficulties, which is an issue, but the attitude, which is that children are a burden and should be disregarded, that has led to this issue. So, and on the other hand, we also have the type of pro-abortion narrative, which is being pushed from in the same way you see in your own countries, like the West, the "my body, my choice" narrative. The abortion is a woman's rights narrative. Abortion is a reproductive right narrative, and not having abortions hurts women, or not having abortions is restricting women, is enslaving women. There's also those narratives which are being pushed from the usual suspects, like you would see from certain strands of from liberal strands of ideology and groups in the academic sphere and universities, and from the media especially from the Western-based, the Persian language media, which are mostly based in Western countries, and many other times they're actually funded by many governments in the West and many international bodies, and the people who usually push for these. So all of these are issues which have affected the issue of abortion.
Wow. So it seems like the pro-abortion narrative that you will live a better life with less children has just sunken so deeply into like the societal like way of thinking and living. And it seems like the other part of the problem is the governmental authorities not enforcing the laws that you do have. What would be the way then to change the government or change the law? Just having pro-life politicians run for office, getting pro-life people in office? What's the way to combat that?
Well, the laws are pretty clear when it comes to abortion, but there needs to be a push. I believe that a push from below, and a more of a demand from regular people
from the people.
Call for these laws to be enforced. And that is on one side. And I also believe that the more important thing is to try to affect and change people's perceptions, and work on a cultural level, and try to change this way of thinking that children are a burden, family is to be planned very specifically, and or that people should try to be more optimistic, because in Iran in the past few years, because of these sanctions, the economy has seen a lot of problems, and this has caused a lot of people to be very pessimistic and very doubtful about their own futures. And this might have affected their way of thinking towards having children. And I think that, while I do believe that things should, we should all do what we can to help the economy, but I also believe that we shouldn't say that, oh, saving lives should be dependent on the economy improving.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, humanity has lived through far, far worse. I mean, even in the worst times, we are still better off than what our ancestors lived through throughout most of history. So
yeah,
I think we should change our own perceptions and try to be more accepting and more optimistic.
Yeah, something I learned just within pro-life advocacy apologetics, a good response I learned is that nothing justifies killing the life of an innocent preborn child. So, for example, if a woman is in poverty and wants to seek out an abortion, well, she's still in poverty. If a woman is a single mother, the baby daddy left her, and so she wants an abortion, okay, well, the abortion doesn't bring back a support system for her, she's still left alone. And so anyways, I just bring that up to make a comparison or a parallel that with the situation of the economy, okay, well, sure, you could seek out an abortion, but that didn't fix the economy. Like, you're still left in the same situation, just without the life of that child. So yeah, that's just a response I think of if somebody says, well, what about the mother's alone, or she's young, or she's impoverished, or for this scenario, the economy's bad. Okay, well, the abortion doesn't fix those things. It just ended the life of an innocent preborn child.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that when you look at the numbers, when you look at how things have changed, the availability of abortion has even made the problem, I think, has made the problem worse, because it has given this peace of mind in many ways that you can enter sexual relationships without having a proper commitment, and nothing's bad's going to happen. But that's not the case. That's the reality, is that these types of relationships usually end up with negative consequences. One of them is children without having a proper support network. So yeah, in a way, when you look at the numbers, when you look at statistics, abortion has exacerbated the problem it was claiming to solve.
Wow. Yeah, I heard recently also how women will say abortion is a right, it is part of women's equality, but there's also statistics that show that abortion didn't further women's progress, like with school or careers, success, that when abortion became legal, of course, this is, I guess, looking at the US, you know, it didn't elevate women. So I think that's interesting what you're saying, and then like comparing like what I've learned recently too. I'm curious about your documentary. Why is it? I think it's so interesting as an American to learn that there was a documentary made about Roe versus Wade in Iran. Why is that? Can you help me understand? Why did you choose the US? Why did you choose to make a movie on Roe versus Wade?
Yeah, so we chose to have the documentary be about the issue of abortion, and we thought that, well, the best way is to, like, well, instead of like talking abstractly about the issue, is to like present a scenario, a case that has an actual history, that we could say, oh, this is what happened, this is how it became legal, this is what happened after that, this is the results of this issue, and this is how people react. And well, Roe versus Wade, well, is one of the most famous and well documented issues in the world, and it is, again, it is one of the examples where there was a huge counter push to it, that unfortunately we didn't see in many other Western countries. But in the United States, there was a huge, the pro-life activism against it was also huge. So we thought that, well, yeah, we could also present the pro-life movement and try to bring attention to that and what they have to say. So we believe that the whole case of Roe versus Wade encapsulated all the things we wanted to say about abortion, because it all had basically everything in it, and it was well documented, and it was the results were well documented, and there was a lot of criticism and a lot of feedback on both sides. So, and well, and in a nutshell, we said, once say, if you're thinking, if Iranians, of course, this we want this documentary is not for specifically one audience. It's for we try to release it internationally as well. But we want in a nutshell, we want to say, okay, if this is the path you want to go, here is this nation which has also gone this path, and it has led to these results.
Wow. So one of the hopes with making this documentary was to ignite a fire, it seems like, in the pro-life people in your country. Am I understanding that?
Yes, that is true.
Okay. Do you feel like people were inspired after watching the film?
Yeah, I do believe that a lot of people were inspired. A lot of people, after that, a lot of people volunteered to start working on this issue.
Wow.
Volunteered to like join and help us. It was one of the issues we faced was, but we had a lot of volunteers, but not the organizational resource to actually effectively utilize. Although we are trying now, and we are getting better, and also a lot of feedback, which was really gave us a lot of inspiration, a lot of hope, is so many messages we received from people who were considering abortion, and were now changing their minds because of what they had seen. And of course,
Wow, it's amazing.
yeah, that was like when you receive like the first message that, oh, I saw this and I no longer the same night we received our first message like this,
Wow,
and it was such a relief to all the team, to
that's
everyone involved,
amazing.
and yeah, it just gave us a lot of hope and really uplifted us. So yes, it did help, and of course, one of the things is that it was a very good resource for many, because there are also other pro-life groups in Iran, and we hope that this would also be seen as a resource for them. And it did start the conversation. So yeah.
So was this documentary released before Roe fell in June?
Yes, actually, it was released in March.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Whoa. Okay. So are you gonna make a part 2 documentary about the fall of Roe?
that is a good idea. Yeah, I mean, but we actually were caught by surprise and thought, wow, if we like
Yeah.
waited a couple of months, we could have um, added this as well. Although for the international version, we did like add a title card in the end, like about how Roe eventually fell. But
Wow.
yeah, I also think that the issue of how Roe came to an end is also worth covering, or worth working on.
Yes. So tell me about your perspective from Iran, from the Middle East. How has Roe falling impacted you, impacting the pro-life movement, and hopefully help to get momentum going in creating a pro-life culture there?
So yeah, the fall of Roe v. Wade, it was a huge news in Iran, and on one hand, I should say that, well, it did, I think, embolden many pro-life activists in Iran, and it felt like a good relief and
Wow.
some sort of support, because unfortunately, the culture in many developing world countries is that many people look to what is known as the West, and they automatically think that whatever happens in the West should be the right way or the perfect way of doing things, and without critically thinking, analyzing, or looking at, is it really the case or not? Because well, the image of the West is like this place with high GDP per capita, so they think that, oh, what they're doing must be the right thing of doing. And well, in Iran, we have a nickname for them, like Paras, which literally means West worshippers.
Oh
And so,
my. That's funny.
yeah, and a lot of these people will, because abortion was presented as a right in many Western countries, many people would also come to assume that, oh, it should be also right here, and this is how things should be done. So the fall of Roe v. Wade distorted that narrative, distorted that viewpoint that the so-called developed West is pro-abortion. So now they're saying, oh, there's this huge number of people with huge momentum against abortion as well. So maybe abortion isn't as clear-cut as we thought. So yeah, and of course, it also helped to know, like, again, it's a relief to know that people who stand for family values, people who stand for life, they are able to fight back. They can also make progress in these difficult times. But on the other hand, again, fall of Roe v. Wade, well, because there was, again, this also a subset of liberal media in Iran, just like the rest of the world, and the Western-based Persian language media, which has a huge presence in Iran. Like we have things like BBC Persian, like Euronews Persian, and many other channels like this. And they also, well, after this news, they capitalized on the fall of Roe v. Wade to actually try to push the pro-abortion narrative, and are well, doing the same things you see in your own mainstream media. So that is that issue as well. And yeah, we have seen a pushback from those media trying to rationalize or support abortion or present it as a right, or things like this, things I think you know better than us. So, and I should point out that things I'm talking about are restricted to Iran. I cannot speak for the greater Middle East. Definitely, different countries might have different issues. I don't know how much this is an issue in other parts. But in Iran, this is how things have worked out. So it brought a lot of hope, but there was also new challenges which have arisen in this post-Roe world.
Yeah, wow. It's so amazing to me. It inspires me to know that the pro-life movement here is helping to inspire people around the world. And, growing up, I didn't know, there was a world outside the US. When you're a child, you don't know that, you think where you are is the world. And then as I got older and realizing like, oh, wow, there's more to the world. And, in the pro-life movement here in the States, it has been, a hard battle. As we've gotten closer to the finish line, it's gotten harder, and the battle is now back to every state. I always joke, I live in the country, Texas. I'm a very proud Texan, and that's my state. And in Texas, we made it so that abortion is completely illegal in our state. But then there's other places like California, Colorado, Oregon, New York, that are going to be sanctuaries for abortion. So the battle definitely is not over. And like in a state like mine, Texas, we're now working more towards creating more resources for women. There's a lot of push now for girls to go out of state and fly somewhere to get their abortion. There's a lot of abortion funds who will pay for their travel, their lodging, for the abortion itself. And so that's kind of like the new shift in what we're fighting in a post-Roe state like Texas. But to my point, it truly does inspire me to know, like, wow, people who maybe I'll never meet around the world are being uplifted by the work that has been done. And I didn't know, again, like how I was saying, the influence, I guess, the impact of what the US has on the rest of the world, that many people do look to the US to see what are they doing? How should we do things? Do we want to copy them? And so I'm glad to know, like how you said, that there were people who thought, well, if the US thinks abortion's a good, then it must be good. And that now we can change that narrative for people around the world to say, actually, no, it was never a good. It was always a wrong. And that people are being inspired, like, oh, maybe we should consider now that the US has overturned Roe versus Wade. That is amazing.
Yes, definitely. And of course, you have inspired pro-life groups in Iran have inspired us. We cover many of the pro-life groups in our own documentary. And that's a point I think we should focus on. We should that this mutual global support is
Yes.
extremely important if we really want to go forward. We should, and I ask all pro-life groups around the world to try to reach out to other pro-life groups, create this global front. And this is something
Absolutely.
this is something we've tried to do in Rescuing Dreams International from day one. We have tried to reach out to other pro-life groups around the world, and I think these groups should organize with each other, should coordinate, should add up their efforts, should add up their resources. And because the truth is that the pro-abortion front is very united, is acting extremely
They're doing the
globally.
exact same thing.
Yeah, it's a by all means a coordinated, a united, a organized global front. And if we don't manage to create a front of our own, we won't be able to stand up for it, and we won't be able to progress. So I think that pro-life groups around the world should try to reach out to each other, try to organize each other, and should try to confront into these many global organizations, national organizations like the UN, like the WHO, which unfortunately we have seen the WHO outright say that abortion should be a right up until birth, which is
It's horrible.
horrendous in my opinion.
Yeah.
And there should be a global effort to counter this. So this is what I'm asking for, and I hope we can do also the same to create this united front around the world.
Yes, absolutely. Can you tell me a little bit more about the work of Rescuing Dreams International?
About our work of Rescuing Dreams. On one hand, we are focusing on our documentary, trying to screen our documentary in universities, in places,
Wow.
in groups, various organizations. We try to, first of all, try to get people to watch this documentary. This is one of our main focuses for now. And we also try to try to coordinate people, aid workers, people therapists, counselors, and connect them with people in need of help.
Nice.
Charities, and we also try to bring in like volunteers, people who are interested in working for this cause. And we have like thousands of people are now like following us on social media, and many of them are have this inspiration, have this motivation to work for this cause, and we are trying to get them to work for the cause in things as I said, like just spreading awareness, spreading the documentary, getting in touch with people, friends who are considering abortion, talking to them, and if they need help, trying to connect them to people who can provide this help.
Yeah, that's amazing. Does the pro-life movement there have resources like pregnancy resource centers or maternity homes?
There are pro-life charities, which,
Okay.
as far as I know, they provide things like, if, for example, problem is that that person doesn't have a job, they try to find a job for a woman or for her husband, if economics or financials is an issue. If there are family problems, we try to counsel them, like provide them counseling and protection. And again, because the whole abortion, I should say, kind of took us by surprise. Like 10 years ago, like when we look at the numbers, 10 years ago, abortion outside of the legal reasons was relatively uncommon. I'm not saying rare, but it wasn't that common. But In just
Mhm.
like 10 years, it has risen to like hundreds
A
of
lot
thousands.
has changed.
Yeah, it like a real jump. And I say no one was prepared for this. No one
Mm.
really didn't know how to confront this issue. And many people were a big problem is many people didn't know that this was an issue in the first
Mm.
place. And because of this, it's still, I'm not saying it's in infancy, because a lot of groups are doing what they can. A lot of people have experience, but it should really expand than it currently is, both in terms of resources, experience, and people.
Wow. Well, I hope with all those new on fire volunteers that they can help further the pro-life resources in your country. And I just want to thank you, Mohammed, for all the work that you have done, your leadership there, and for your team of people. Thank you for all the work through Rescuing Dreams International. And I'm curious, where can people watch this documentary if somebody wants to tune in?
Yeah, so well, we've actually translated and dubbed our documentary to English. It is,
Nice.
yeah, it's ready right now on, well, you can purchase it on our site, which is bleedingmovie.com.
Bleedingmovie.com.
Bleedingmovie.com. The site will be hopefully up and running in a few days, although we have some, we're sorting some issues out with like payment issues. You could watch our documentary there if you're interested. We're also on social media, on Twitter, on Gab, on Facebook by the name AVASH Media, AVASH Media. You could also follow us there for more updates on the documentary and our work. And yeah, so that's all.
AVSH Media?
AVASH Media.
AVASH Media on all social media platforms.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mohammed, for taking the time to chat with me today. I'm so glad I was able to learn from you and to be inspired by you. And I hope that we can continue working together to create a pro-life, abortion-free world.
Thank you, Melanie, for having me. And I also should thank you, Pro-Life Global, and all other pro-life organizations in the United States and around the world for what you have done and what you're continuing to doing. And I'm also thankful for the opportunity you gave us, and also for what we have learned from you.
Awesome. Well, together we will make the abortion-free world. All righty.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye. Goodbye.